Well, there's some people who think that depression is a gift. It's something that is given when we need to consider something, we need to resolve something. If we just plough on through life and don't consider our lives at all, then we're not really living. Sometimes I think it's like the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. We go into a dormant state, and in that dormant state it might be an awful thing, but something is being resolved, something's being changed, something is coming out of this.
Up until this point, not many people knew about your depression. Why was it something you started to talk about now?
So it was 20 years after I'd won the World Championship in '96 that I wrote the book. I owed people who'd followed my career a bit of an explanation as to what had happened. I'd let other people tell the story, and I felt now was a good time to actually tell my side of the story. So that was one of the reasons. But the other reason was also to talk about experience of having depression and also going through therapy. If you're a Formula One world champion, you have to eat a lot of humble pie to sit there and say to someone, I'm lost, I don't know where I'm going, because that's not the way you've gone about your life. You know, you've achieved a world championship, your dad became a world champion, you got to the top because you believe that you've got the secret of success. I can't sit here and say that I didn't follow a dream, because I did. I followed my dream and I got there, became world champion. So why should I be unhappy? The answer to that is, well, you can't be in that state forever. So there's this everyday experience which has to be viewed differently. Depression is sometimes a product of feeling like the dream is lost. The dream, you had a dream and it's lost, and you're mourning over something that was lost. And in my case, that might well have been, I didn't grieve for my dad when he died. You know, I didn't actually get that relationship that everyone wants to have with their dad. And of course, relevant to yourself and relevant to a lot of people, there's something missing that it wasn't dealt with at the time, wasn't talked about at the time, and it's lingering. So you need someone to talk to about it.
Yeah, I think another thing what a professional can do, which other people can't do, is pointing out certain things which, when they're pointed out to you, they seem obvious. I mean, I've noticed this in my own mind. You know, I think I've got everything pretty figured out. But what I can't figure out is suddenly I have this absolute dipper. It can take a professional just to point a few things out, and that can make you analyse yourself in different ways, which you wouldn't have done beforehand. And then it's actually very easy once you know how to do it. The
problem that we have in society is that who do you talk to about these things? And you don't want to be a pain. You don't want to be going around to people going, oh, you know, I've got a sad story to tell. And that's a genuine concern, because you don't want to be bothering people. Everyone's got their own cross to bear. That's why it's very helpful to find someone professional who can actually, his job it is to sit and listen to this stuff. And I've got myself into a state, and I've made myself all anxious about this stuff. And actually, now I talk about it to someone, it seems like a ridiculous thing to be worried about.
But I think after you retire, might be one psychological thing. Well, when you're at the top, where else do you go? What do you do?
People need an identity. They need a role in society. They need to know who they are and what they do. And if you take away that thing, then it can be catastrophic. If there's no sense of being able to do something else. I got to the point where I'd run out of ideas, and I literally phoned a friend who was actually a therapist. I couldn't see them, so they recommended someone for me to go and talk to. And it was almost immediately a massive relief to be able to go and sit down with someone and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm worried about, this is what I'm confused about. And to have someone sit there and not tell you what to do, not tell you to take these pills, just get you to talk about yourself. And in that way, you start to get a feel for where you are in your life, where you're going, and that was an enormous help.
During your career, as you mentioned in your book, when you were driving, particularly in Formula One, you weren't happy throughout the whole course of it. Was there an element of you thought, you can't let anyone know about this because that will upset Patrick even more?
I wouldn't say I wasn't happy. It was clearly bringing me rewards. I was winning races. But it's a very binary thing, sport. You know, you win or you lose, and you don't want to be the loser. So people talk about a summit, talk about climbing to the top. But I would say it's more like you're trying to swim to the surface. In other words, if you're not got your head above water. If you're not winning, you're drowning. And so that is a very extreme and unhelpful mindset. But it's quite understandable if you're in a competitive environment. Because let's face it, in Formula One, they only want to know about the person who's got the magic, the secret, the Lewis Hamilton, who can win, or the Max Verstappen, or they are winners. They've got something extra. Those people are in demand. And when they're not winning, it's extremely difficult. There'll be people who continue to believe, but a lot of people are very quick to dismiss. That's what they say about sport, isn't it? It doesn't build character, it exposes character. Because it exposes your ability to deal with defeat. It's easy to win, if you feel good. Everyone else thinks you're fantastic. Obviously you put a lot of effort in to get there, but the difficulty with sport is coping with not winning. We live in a culture that sells success. It sells the idea of perfection. And so, the obvious example of the girl with the perfect hair in the commercial, and the net effect of that is you get girls who don't feel good. They don't look at the advert and go, oh, I feel much better, that person is really perfect. I look at myself and I go, well, I'm not perfect. And then you start this downward spiral. So everybody, I think, is affected by the culture that we're in. And the culture we're in celebrates success, celebrates perfection. It's an unobtainable, unrealistic and unhelpful idea.
My mother was an alcoholic, so when she went through AA, and they say it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the power to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I thought that's a wonderful one. When you're really worried about something, you think, well, actually, hang on, can I do something about this? Yeah, that's the question. And if I can, then where do I find the courage? Where do I find the capacity to do something about it? If you can't do anything about it, put it out of your mind. Because there's no point worrying about something if you can't fix it.
You first have to accept that you need someone to help you through that. And that's something that blokes particularly, and maybe English blokes, I don't know, more than most, don't want to.
Yeah, a lot of pride as well. It gets in the way of one's development, I think. Too much pride. Pride can be a very bad thing, at times a good thing as well, but can be very dangerous, too much pride, I think.
I remember Freddie Flintoff talked about having had depression, and it was in an interview with Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan was very unsympathetic to him and felt very much that this was just sports people are spoilt in their profession. They do something everyone would love to be doing. What the hell have they got to complain about? If he hasn't been through something like that, then I think that then he's talking from a position of not knowing what he's talking about. All credit to Freddie Flintoff for saying, listen, I had down days and I didn't like it, and I need it, and that's where I'm talking about it, because other people perhaps can be helped by talking to someone.
I've started seeing a therapist in more recent years. Every now and again, I need to have a bit of a brush up, someone to talk to. I was very surprised to find actually in the first session, crikey, this has already helped somewhat in just one session.
The whole goal of this is to realise your potential and stop being limited by depression. You don't want depression to get in the way of everything. So in any case, finding someone who can listen and can be trusted is as good as not doing it at all. Keeping it all to yourself, trying to work it out for yourself, doesn't work, because it's like having a map that's wrong and trying to use that map to find out where you live. Everyone faces challenges every day, and I think that one of the difficulties is for anybody hearing a person who's had depression talking about their experiences. A lot of people hear it and they go, so, that's life, get on with it. What I mean? Yeah. And I understand that completely, and I think that's one of the contributing factors to making things worse for a person who suffers from depression, because they don't have the equipment to deal with those, even sometimes small setbacks, and they need to be able to have someone coach them in a way. That's what the therapist is there, as a kind of coach in making that person realise that they have got the ability. Things might seem quite bad, but they do have the ability to do something about it. So a sense of agency, a sense of having power over your destiny, realising that we all have that within ourselves, is a big turning point.
Was there, any part of you that was worried, you'd tell the world about your depression, that would have a negative impact on your life.
We don't live in a very forgiving world, and sometimes it's wise to keep things to yourself. But I feel confident enough now that I feel I can pass that experience on and talk about it, and that hopefully people who are in a desperate situation or unhappy, they can take from this the message that take one day at a time and keep going, because you, as my therapist said to me when I first went there, it was, you don't know what the future holds. You can't sit here and say it's going to be awful, because you don't know. It might not be. The sun is shining today. Yesterday it was tipping down with rain all day. Life is like that, up and down, all the way through.
Yeah, the little bouts of depression I've experienced over the years, I could have 3 terrible days and think, by the end of the 3rd day I'm really considering some options now. But then I wake up the 4th morning and I feel great. Yeah. So you don't know what's going on, so you just got to keep going and until you find out, and you keep learning more as you get on. Well, Damon, thank you very much for your time. That was a good chat.
Pleasure talking to you. That'll be £100.